What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes show. It's a good thing that we did the GM meeting when we did because the Yankees signed Anthony Rizzo. And I looked actually last year, it was published on like November 10th, and this year was November 9th. So we did it around the same time last year, too.
I remember last year I was thinking the same thing because the year before, I believe, is when we were like, oh man, they're making moves already and we haven't done it yet. So we had to build a couple in. And this one, we both I think both teams nailed the contract. It was pretty much what we expected with that
Good value,
third-year
I
option.
think. Yeah, I mean, I actually was surprised it wasn't 3 fully guaranteed years. I just figured if Rizzo's opting out, he's got to be confident he's going to get 3 years on the market. But he clearly wanted to be back with the Yankees. The Yankees wanted him back. I don't know, because of that, there's a slight discount. It's not like a bargain basement type of contract. He's still making $17 million a year, which is a slight raise. And then so it's $40 million guaranteed because of that buyout in the third year. But I think overall this is a good contract for Rizzo. Good contract for the team.
It's a good contract for the team, no doubt. Yeah, and he got, he turned down the option because he wanted to get paid a little bit more. I think this is honestly this is Ilya. I think we even put 2 years of the third-year option on this one, just for his deal. It just makes a lot of sense. And honestly, your guys' contract that you had on that sheet was spot on too. The biggest thing for me is I really do think this is an early indicator that Judge is happening, because I think they are.
I know you keep saying that. You really think that these two?
I do.
You really think it's like?
Yes, I do. I think that contract,
they're that close.
I think that this team was in a good spot, and they all recognize that. And I think that the team recognizes that they had something good going, and unfortunately, injuries and other things just got in the way. And yeah, I do. I think all things considered, where you want to be, I don't think he wants to be here. If I think this team looks very different if Judge is not here too. So yeah, I do. I think it's a thing. People like playing with people they like.
So you think that there's a conversation when Rizzo is accepting this deal, he's saying he knows that you guys are serious about signing Judge. You're going to do everything in your power, as Steinbrenner has said. You're going to do everything in our power to sign Judge.
Yes. And I think it's also incentive for Judge to understand that okay, Rizzo's coming back. We've got the guys that are coming back, he's there for 3 more years. I think it helps. It absolutely helps. I think that he's the kind of guy that has really started to, fall into this leadership role of the team and starting to really build those qualities out. So I think that the people around him are important. And for Judge, he's going to get paid. Like we know he's going to get paid. He knows he's going to get paid. So he kind of does, I think, get a little bit of say in where he's going at this point because of that. I think there are going to be multiple offers, probably very close to each other.
So by that logic, if the Yankees did not give Rizzo that full confidence that they're going to be able to re-sign Judge, you don't think he accepts this deal, or you think he's still on the market?
Rizzo, yeah, I think he could potentially be still in the market. I think this helps. But who knows? Maybe the market came to him pretty quickly. I know the Astros, Ilya pissed off a lot of people with the graphic throwing an Astros hat on Rizzo the day before he signed. But that they came out and said he's our top target. If you hear that, then and you like him, you better go sign that guy, and you better do it quickly, and you better tell him some things that he wants to hear. Because if Anthony Rizzo goes to the Houston Astros, guess what? They're a very good team, and they just got better if that's the case, because they, a lefty bat that's a vacuum at first is not good. That would have been a very bad thing for the Yankees at that point. And that gap that they're talking about and how they need to close it would have gotten actually wider.
Yeah, it would have been, because that team desperately needs another left-handed bat. I know Yuri Gurriel had a pretty solid postseason, but he did not have a good regular season. So yeah, that would have been bad news for the Yankees. Good signing for the Astros. So apparently Rizzo never spoke to any other team because he never formally declined the qualifying offer. So that's another reason why this deal came together quickly. One other interesting thing about it is that it is a $20 million luxury tax hit. Even though he's making $17 million a year, it is $20 million on the luxury tax because of the option and the buyout. So if we're going to be eyeing those luxury tax thresholds, that actually hurts the team. So I think both of us and our contracts, even though we were guaranteeing him more money, the luxury tax impact was lower because there was no buyouts and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the buyout, it added. I was looking at the notes here, and it says that the luxury tax hit is 20 million. Is that right? And
Yes, because it's 40 million guaranteed over 2 years, because that's the minimum amount of money that Rizzo is going to get from the
I
Yankees.
see. The 6 million is only in the 2 years. Got it. I was confused because I was thinking 3. Yeah, it makes sense.
No, if they sign him to a third year,
right, it's 17.
He makes 17 million in the next year, but still the luxury tax hit is 20 million.
Because no matter what, the 6 is happening.
Correct.
So, but the luxury tax hit in the third year would be 17 then, right?
It says on Spot Track that it's 20.
Yeah, that's what I didn't understand.
I am confused by that, because I would think as well. So I guess that cash carries over, but I don't know why that cash would carry over. So, I mean, I trust Spot Track, but yeah,
I don't know. It shouldn't carry over. If it's guaranteed, that means after the 2 years, if that deal does not happen, you're getting that 6 million. So no matter what, worst case scenario, that is happening. So that's why I totally understand why that 20 is there. Yeah, what confused me and threw me for a loop was the third year luxury tax hit at 20 million if there was an opt-in on the contract at 17. That doesn't make sense unless there's some kind of a signing bonus attached to the third year contract that we don't know about.
Maybe, but I don't know. So I mean, great first move for the Yankees. Are you surprised that this was the first move and not Judge?
No, because I think I just assumed Judge would take some time. I mean, it's a massive deal. This one is
he's going to talk to teams.
Yeah. Well, even if he's not doing it seriously, he's going to do it just to play the game. But I honestly, like, I think there is a very, again, I don't know shit. I'm just going off of, what is, what I'm anticipating here. And I think that they're talking, and there's an understanding that Judge, it makes so much sense for Judge to return, both from the Yankee side and the player side. And when you have that type of situation, like, it should happen. You should just figure it out. And I think they will.
Well, apparently Judge is going to be talking to everyone except the Mets, because reportedly Steve Cohen is not going to be in a bidding war with Hal Steinbrenner over Aaron Judge. And this got the attention of the Players Association. So there was an article in The Athletic, I think by Ken Rosenthal. I'm going to read a couple lines here from it, and we'll talk about it. So an article published on SNY.TV said the Mets would not bid against the Yankees for Judge. Details in the story caught the attention of the Players Association, which asked the commissioner's office to investigate whether improper communication occurred between the respective owners of the clubs, according to a source behind the situation. The article stated that the Mets' position on Judge had not changed since April, when the team sources said the club would not fight the Yankees for the outfielder because if he became a free agent during the offseason. The article also said Cohen and Steinbrenner, quote, enjoy a mutually respective relationship and do not expect to upend that with high-profile bidding war. It was posted by our friend Andy Martino, who just always seems to cause rifts with whatever.
He really does. He really does seem like he's in the middle of every problem.
He likes to just stir the shit and be in the muck.
That's why he's your.
I
guy.
don't even think
that's why he's your guy. To be honest, like,
oh yeah, because if I was a
you would be a problem.
I would be the exact same.
You would be
way.
such a pain in the ass.
People would fucking hate me.
Yes,
people would hate me. People already do hate me. I don't give a fuck. But I don't think this is like that's to me is like almost a nothing report by Martino. It's like all he's reporting is what his sources about Cohen are saying. He's not reporting that there's collusion happening. Now, I understand why the Players Association wants them to investigate collusion, because that's something they're hyper aware of ever since the birth of free agency. It goes back into the 70s where the owners colluded with each other to lower the price of free agents. So it's something that they're not going to let happen again. And in theory, you take out the Mets and Steve Cohen from the bidding war and Aaron Judge, that drives his price down, not up. But I don't know that that's what this report is saying.
I think the word collusion can get misunderstood in that way. That collusion to me means like multiple people are directly involved in something to alter a particular topic or
so
whatnot.
More than two? You don't think you can collude with one other person?
That is two people. total, right? If you collude with one other
You
person,
said
is that two?
so you
Yeah,
think two. So then this could be collusion if it's Steinbrenner and Cohen.
it could be, but I'm
It's
saying
two.
in this.
Two.
Yes. Okay. I don't know what you're saying, but let me just finish my thought, please. Now I'm thrown off because you're freaking basic math. What I'm saying is that they also don't want people just driving a narrative or talking about particular things, even if they're not colluding with another person per se directly on something. And that goes with the Astros. There was something about Verlander looking for a similar Scherzer contract, right? Him saying that while he's potentially not openly colluding with other teams, what it does is it affects the market because now you have given some information that happened behind closed doors, in theory, between ownership and agent about what a price would be. And those conversations are not supposed to be out in the open. They are supposed to be closed door conversations to respect the process of the free agent market and the player and the agent going around and talking to other folks. If you're doing that, then now you're like, okay, you're slipping some information out there to basically tell people to just back off. You can't sign this guy because he's looking for X dollars, which in theory could drive the cost down because he's not talking to as many people. So that my point was is that collusion doesn't necessarily have to be between two parties directly. And I think that word makes people think that, oh, there's two people like behind the scenes in a room, like making a plan. It doesn't always have to be that way. I think they're very conscious of words that are said that can also affect a marketplace.
Yeah, I guess then they're trying to prove intent. Like, were you intending to collude,
even if you don't intend it, like you could be
collude?
fined because you just can't do it.
Yeah.
Whether you intended, whether you slipped in saying something like that, and my bad, you're still should be fined for that, and there should be some kind of a repercussion because it's still against the CBA and what they're trying to accomplish here with having an open market.
Do you think the Mets should be in on Aaron Judge?
I mean, Aaron Judge just had one of the best offensive seasons that any player has ever had playing the game of baseball. Shouldn't every single team be in on Aaron Judge if their finances allow it? Yes, of course. Why wouldn't? I don't want them to be because I know how deep his pockets are, and I know that he will just go out and spend. But should they be? Yeah. You'd be crazy
So
if you say no. We shouldn't be. He's not he doesn't fit our team. Like,
well, do you believe they're
in
not?
What situation could that be?
Do
I believe it or not? No, I don't believe him. I think that potentially this is like the reverse.
That's where I was getting at.
Yeah, I think he could be fucking with everybody and be like, "No, we're fine. We would never do." And then he's going to go in and just like give him a $400 million offer.
Yeah, it's like, do you think Steve Cohen really cares about his relationship with Hal Steinbrenner that much?
No,
Hal Steinbrenner doesn't strike me as someone who's fun to hang out with.
These guys don't get to these places by being best friends with each other. They don't.
No, but you do have your owner buddies. I think you have your billionaire buddies.
Not across the borough. Not in the same city when you're competing for market share. Yeah,
right. No. You're friends with the Mariners owner. You're not friends with the owner of the team that's 3 miles away.
The GMs can be friends. The owners maybe not. Who knows? But at the same time, it's like keep your enemies closer situation. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, we're buddies. We're texting. Let's tell everybody that we're buddies. But in fact,
well, they're going to investigate the text messages. It's just I would love to see those text messages between Cohen and Steinbrenner. Like, what are those guys talking about?
5 butt dials, like maybe a whole lot of misspellings.
So it's going to be a lot of caps, like how my dad texts. Like it's all caps lock. It's permanent caps lock.
Yeah, and then Hal's yelling back at Cohen for yelling at him over text message.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens of this. It certainly would be interesting. So they're, like you said, investigating the Verlander stuff too, and the Players Association. Can we go through one off season where there's not something happening with these two sides? No, I don't think we can.
Just another quick note on that one. Even if they're not really like actually investigating it and making a big deal of it, they're going to come out and say that they are, I think, to prevent anybody else. Like, oh, just so you guys know, we're looking into this. So, don't do it. It's basically it's just like it's an easy tactic for them to get into the media to say something, to try to prevent more of it from happening. I'm sure agents get pissed off and like, you get those phone calls to the league office of like, those are not text messages. Those are screaming obscenities from some from Scott Boras and teams like that are like, going nuts on like, you better find these guys because they're affecting the dollars that are coming. They're taking food off the table for Verlander and DeGrom, caviar off the table.
It's yeah, I mean, because this is how the agents, once you have the player that hits free agency, you basically know what their market value is based on their talent level and their performance. It's about getting that little extra 5-10% with your negotiating skills and using leverage of other teams. And if you take that leverage away, that's, I mean, then where's the fun in it for the agents, right? Like Boris is going into these meetings. He just wants to put feet to the fire of these teams. Like I feel like that's what he gets off on.
Oh yeah, he wants to make everybody's life difficult just so he can make some more money. There's no doubt. It's really, he's done a really good job at it. He's actually probably the best in the business at it.
Yeah. And Hal said about spending, we have plenty of ability, and Aaron Judge and I talk about this, to make other things happen too. Meaning, if they sign Aaron Judge, it's not a situation where you're locking up one player and then you can't spend on other areas of the team, to your point about also having Rizzo come back.
Yeah, I think that this is one of those situations too, that if Judge were to say, hey, I want to know more. I want to know more about what the plans are. I want to know more about what the next 5 years look like. I want to know what the spending looks like. I want to know all of these things. I think he has every right to ask those questions. And I think that they should be, they need to be on the same page, because this is
if that's important to Judge, that's actually a really good sign that he's coming back to the Yankees, because if he's going to some of these other teams, say the Giants, like that's one of the other leading candidates here. The Giants, as much of a big market team and big spender as they are, it's like you sign Aaron Judge, that could very well prevent you from doing some other things. And if that's important to Aaron Judge, being surrounded with a championship caliber team, and he's going to take up 35, 36, 37 million dollars of annual payroll, and then the Giants like, well, it's going to be tough because we're paying you 38 million dollars, that might deter him. I mean, maybe if it's far and away more money, he might say, screw it, I'm going to the most money. But it's a factor. That's good.
Absolutely. I think doesn't that fit what we think Aaron Judge is too? I mean, in my head, he very much
that's what we want him to
guy.
be.
Well, no, I think that's what he is. That's what he is. That you can't just say that's what we want him to be. Of course, that's what we want him to be. But that is also what he has acted like since being here. He's been a team guy. Unless you talk to you about the Ohtani piece, then he's not a team guy. But facing
that
Ohtani
wasn't about him being
Stadium,
not a team guy. That was about him being soft,
wanting it. But at this, everything that I think about Aaron Judge, I believe that he does have the team in mind when he's thinking about a lot of things. And if he's going to be somewhere right for 8, 9, 10 years, of course he wants the ability to compete and win a World Series, because he knows if he's here and they're not able to spend the money and they have a middling team for the next 5, 6 years, his legacy will be very different if they're not able to compete and actually get over the hump with a championship. Like, he knows he's got to win a championship wearing the pinstripes.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's I don't want to say forgotten about, because he's already done things that very few players, obviously 62 home runs, have done. But you're not talked about and cared about in 15, 20 years like you are if you win a championship. That's just the bottom line.
No, you have to win. You're talked about it in
and what I meant by want him to be, that's what we want every player. We want every player to want to win, like us fans want the team to win, right? Like, and
of course,
it's easy to forget that this is their business and their livelihood. So,
their legacy.
It's always, and their legacy. So it's like, the cliche is like, this is like a sports radio cliche, like, oh, I would take a hometown discount to play in New York because I'm a Yankees fan. Oh really? You'd take 10 million instead of 12 million to play in New York because you're making 80K now, and so yeah, the 10 million looks nice. I got it, dude. But when you're on a different level, it's just a completely different ball game, and so you have to understand that it's hard to put ourselves in the shoes. So we want Aaron Judge to want the team to be surrounded with top talent, but he wants to be paid while being surrounded by the top talent.
Sure. Yes. Fair market value. He wants to be paid. He knows that we know what that value is. So yeah, totally agree. It's going to be in New York. It's going to be here and not on the other side.
I'm fully confident he's coming back to the Yankees. I don't know what my lowest, I guess my lowest on him coming back to the Yankees was probably 12:05 p.m. on opening day when Brian
Right.
Cashman was outlining the details of what Aaron Judge declined. That was probably my lowest that Aaron Judge would be a Yankee next year. But especially how the season went, and even though it was bad postseason for Judge, I'm still very confident he's coming back.
Good. I'm glad.
So what we're gonna do for the rest of this episode is, we're thinking about what can we talk about since there's not a ton of news. I mean, MVP will be announced tonight. Hopefully, Judge wins. Justin Verlander won the Cy Young in the American League unanimously, robbing Nestor Cortez of his title. But we wanted to talk about the Cashman era free agent signings, not just free agent signings, just signings in general, big signings. And what were some of the best ones? What were the biggest ones? Which ones worked out the best? So it's just going to be running through a list of guys. I mean, obviously, in the last 2 decades is when all of the big money contracts were signed for the $150+ million. But a lot of times those didn't work out. And then you find some diamonds in the rough of an example, signing Tino Martinez to a nice deal and the WAR that he produced, the stats he produced over his 5-year deal. One of the best in Yankees history, certainly. So let's start with the biggest contracts that Brian Cashman has ever handed out. The biggest, Garrett Cole, 9 years for $324 million. And we came up with a metric to analyze the value of these contracts. Basically, $1 million, amount of millions spent for WAR produced to see if the value is good there. And so far, Garrett Cole in 3 years has earned $85.3 million and produced 10 WAR, which means his $1 million WAR is $8.36 million. And the reason is a little bit lower in earnings is because the 2020 season was obviously shortened. So it was a prorated salary there. So $8.36 million spent for every 1 WAR that Garrett Cole has given the Yankees, which if you look at Fangraph's average spending for WAR on free agency is pretty much in line with what teams are spending between 2019 and 2022, between 5.5 and 9.5 million in that time. So not certainly a massive contract. A lot of this will depend on how Garrett Cole does over the next few years, because like any of these big free agent contracts, as the years go on, the WAR usually goes down, but the money stays the same, and we could change our mind on it. Obviously, a lot will depend on if they win a championship, and Garrett Cole's a big part of that or not. But so far, he's been market value if you go by what other teams are spending on the free agent market.
Yeah, he has, and we're going to talk about the value deals as well in this. And it's funny because when you start looking at, you just see the level of importance for finding those values, and you see how if you have a GM that is able to strike on not only young guys but also free agent deals, how incredibly valuable that is, and how you can really build an incredible nucleus if you can hit on some of those lower deals. And I think that when you start to see, as we get into where they are, you see a lot of them, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and it makes a lot of sense for why the teams were the way that they were at that time. But yeah, Garrett Cole, I mean, he's on a clock for finding value, to be very honest. Like after this year, he probably drove me more crazy than anybody on the team because of the ability that he had, and just wasn't executing like we expect him to execute. But yeah, he's on the clock, man. He's on the clock, and frankly, I think next year is a very important year for him, because if he doesn't come out,
that's what we said about this year.
Well, then they just continued, but he screwed it up this year. He screwed it up this year. So I guess every single year after the year that you don't meet expectations is the most important, because you need to turn it around. And if that's not the case, then this contract is going to look terrible, really, really bad. It's going to look really bad.
Logan has made this point a number of times that there is precedent for starting pitching being elite late into your 30s. I mean, Justin Verlander just won the Cy Young, for God's sake. Okay, so Max Scherzer got $40 million a year because he was still an elite pitcher. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility that Garrett Cole can still be a really good pitcher when he's 37, 38, 39 years old. There is an interesting thing though that I stumbled upon, which I forgot about in his contract. He can opt out after the 2024 season. The Yankees can void that opt out by guaranteeing him a 10th year for $36 million. So it'll be interesting to see if he does that. I mean, I know it's 2 years away, but if he has 2 seasons of, let's just say he's pitching exactly in these next 2 years, exactly as he's pitched in these first 3 years, he's probably opting out.
Purely for the years, for the amount of years that he could get, I guess, because if you look at a total contract, you could probably get more based on what you're saying. But the AAV will be certainly lower. It just depends on I guess on what he does in the next 2 years. Talking about like Verlander and Scherzer staying elite at the end of their careers. Like, did they have middling seasons like Cole just did? That's where I need to go back and look.
Verlander, especially with the last couple of years for Verlander in Detroit, it's like people thought
the last year for him. Oh, in Detroit, yeah, that's right. So that's where it's like you need to refine, your mechanics, or if you were not healthy in a particular time, you need to get back to full health. Like,
and Cole has not been as bad as Verlander was.
I agree with that.
End of Verlander's tenure in Detroit, but Verlander has been a top 3 starting pitcher in baseball since he left Detroit.
Yeah, he has. Why do we think that is? Just mechanics have been cleaned
Probably
up.
Probably the Astros doing something shady.
Yeah. Some kind of a talcum thing nobody can see. It's invisible. You can't see it. It becomes part of your skin.
They actually took the arm off of a 20-year-old pitching phenom and attached it to Justin Verlander.
No, they're just doing skin grafts in between innings on your fingers.
I don't know what it was. Obviously, we're joking about the Astros, but like, I mean, Verlander figured it out. There's no reason to think Cole can't also figure it out, right?
And not that he's far off, because he's not. It's he's frustrating because of the expectation. That's really what drives that. But shit, he gave up way too many of those 3-run home runs in the 5th inning for me to look past it.
Don't you guys think though, if he pitches even the way he's pitched these past 2 years, that if he opts out, they'll just give him that 10th year, because that would
Definitely.
it would be 5 years at 36 million left still at that point. So it'd be like, he wouldn't. You'd have to re-sign him for more.
They shouldn't. They should let him walk. So? If he opts out, let him walk. I mean, let's talk about
They might want him to opt out.
Yes. So let's talk about CC next. It's not the next biggest contract, but the CC is an interesting parallel, because the Yankees gave CC Sabathia at the time the biggest free agent pitching contract in 2009. It was 7 years, $161 million, with the ability to opt out after 2011, in which CC did. If you just isolate those first 3 years of the Yankees paid him $63.9 million, and he produced 17.4 WAR, which is $3.67 million paid for WAR, which is freaking unbelievable. Okay. And then the Yankees gave him an extension through 2017, 6 years, $142 million, and he only produced 9.8 WAR, which means they paid him $14.49 million per WAR produced in that second portion of the contract. Now, CC went through a whole ton of shit, injuries, alcoholism, as we've learned. And it wasn't until the end of that 6 years that CC actually kind of reinvented himself. And then the Yankees ended up tacking on extra years. So a big reason why the Yankees fans love CC and I love CC so much is because he did figure it out towards the end of his time. If he just fizzled out entirely, we might have a slightly different take on that. But the 2012, 2013, 2014 seasons, 2012 I think was still good. 13, 14 for CC was god awful. So I think if the Yankees could have a do-over, they would have let him walk after 2011.
Yeah, but that's also, like you said, there were a lot of other circumstances happening and why he didn't. So hindsight being 2020, if he were fully healthy and fully, his habits and off the field issues weren't prevalent, and you're just looking at this physical specimen that dominated for those 3 years that you're talking about, and then was also once getting right again and getting healthy, was able to figure it out with lesser stuff. Like, the guy was a special talent on the mound,
but not a $25 million a year pitcher towards the end.
But again, there were a lot more circumstances. It wasn't just injury or just demise because of old age. Like there were a
Even
lot
when,
of
I'm
things
saying
going
even
on.
when he figured it out. So he figured it out, I believe, in the 2015 season. He started to figure it out, and the Yankees were still paying him $25 million a year in 15, 16, and 17. He was not a $25 million a year pitcher. Even though he had figured it out, he was a $10, $12 million a year pitcher, right? So if we're saying Garrett Cole is going to diminish, but the Yankees are still going to be paying him $36 million. Even if Garrett Cole is still solid and good, he's not going to be worth $36 million.
The problem is if you want the elite talent for the shorter amount of time, even if it's not for, you have to pay for it up front. Yeah. Otherwise, you're not going to get it unless you just hit and you get lucky.
Unless you're shrewd. Yeah. Unless you're shrewd. And if the Yankees have the leverage, or if they're even...
Well, he's going to get the contract from someone else. It's not even that. It's not even just them.
Let him go. Let him
go.
But
my point is that if you are seeking and want that top tier talent, you have to take the risk on paying them, and understand that the back end of a deal, and this is across the board, not just pitchers, but position players. It's going to be the same conversation we're going to have with Judge and Stanton. It's exactly what happened with A-Rod.
And
the back of the contracts are never good, but you have to, as an organization, understand that you are paying for the first half of that contract, and you're going to pay more. If you look at the total deal based on the war or whatever, you're going to overpay. That's understood. Yes. Otherwise, you're not getting that talent.
My point is, yes, to get the player initially in free agency or to extend him, you have to overpay for the back years. But if you give that player an opt-out and he exercises that opt-out, you should let him walk.
I guess, but at the same time, what we just said is conflicting what you just said. We just said that you can be elite all the way through the age 40, 41 years old. We saw...
Of course, you can be.
But when you are special talent and you keep your body in check, like that can happen. So you're missing out on that. You can't predict that stuff. If you are trying to get a top tier, top level talent, you have to pay for it. And if you let them, how are you going to let CC walk after those first 3 years when you see that?
I know.
That can't happen.
I know.
The fan base would crucify you.
The Yankees could not have let him walk at that time.
So
I think
at that point,
situation will be different. Cole's situation will be different. I think he'll be older than CC was, and he'll have spent more time with the Yankees in what should have been the prime years. It has been 5 seasons that the Yankees should have hopefully won a championship by then. If that doesn't happen and the Yankees decide to let Cole walk, I think the perception will be different.
The only way that they will let him walk and the perception will be, okay, let him walk, is if he has 2 mediocre years in the next coming. If he comes out and has
then he won't opt out.
Well, if he has 2 good, again, he might be able to get more years and a total dollar amount higher. And someone thinking that, we're going to get Verlander from Detroit into Houston,
right?
Someone will probably pay for him no matter what. So I think him opting out is probably inevitable in order to either get a new contract or have the Yankees just exercise that 10th year. I think it's going to happen no matter what. But if the Yankees, if Garrett Cole doesn't have 2 very good years, that's the only way that I think that it would be accepted for them. If he has 2 good years, of course you have to stay with it and you have to get that 10th year, and you're going to overpay and it's going to be ugly in the 9th and 10th year, but you have to do it.
So a couple of the massive contracts I want to talk about. The A-Rod one after the 2007 season is interesting. 10 years, $275, because I know Cashman has his name put on that, but I believe that was a Steinbrenner orchestration. That deal obviously was trash for the Yankees. A-Rod didn't even play in 2014. He was suspended. The Yankees still paid him a little bit. Then they had to pay him even though they forced his retirement in 2016 and 2017. So that was a horrible deal for the Yankees. The Jeter extension, 10 years, $189, was a really, really good deal for the Yankees. 2001 to 2010, Jeter produced 41.2 WAR, which is $4.59 million per WAR. Really, really good deal for Jeter. Some other good ones on here. Tanaka was good, 7 for $155. His value was 8.86. I mean, it's not fantastic, but I think that overall was a good deal. Jacoby Ellsbury was perhaps the worst ever. He only produced 9.8 WAR and earned $153 million. Underrated good deal for the Yankees, Jason Giambi. 7 years, $120 million, 22 WAR, $5.45 million per WAR. Giambi, go look at his baseball reference page. Yes, he had some non-existent years he was injured. He also had some monster offensive seasons.
Yeah. He's also been on, testified in certain areas as well.
Whatever.
Yeah. But yes, he definitely had some monster years. Okay, real quick. First thing you think of, Jason Giambi, what is it?
Mustache.
Okay, I think of home run in the rain.
Okay, that too. Minnesota Grand Slam.
Yeah, iconic. That's a Yankee moment.
I just think of like sweaty, greasy dude.
Yeah, he was sweaty and greasy. I
What-
loved it. I did.
Everyone said really great clubhouse guy.
Really good. Yeah, and the one of the best nicknames out there, the Giambino, is just an all timer.
All right, now let's talk about the best value contracts. There's some interesting ones in here. You could argue the best value contract Brian Cashman has ever orchestrated is for Tino Martinez. From 1997 to 2001, 5 years, he earned $20.3 million and produced 13.1 WAR, which is 1.55 million per WAR. Really, really fantastic deal for Tino Martinez in those years in which the Yankees won many championships.
And a glue guy. Like, that's the type of thing that I was referring to at the beginning of the show, is that when you look at these types of contracts, if you have a GM that is able to find and identify these types of folks that can come in, have massive impact on your I mean, honestly, like Anthony Rizzo feels like that kind of guy. He's like that type of guy. He's getting paid more, obviously, but he's that type of guy. There's the intangibles are off the charts, competitor off the charts. And if you can find him early enough and get him for a good value, like they did Tino, and that was not that was a dicey time too, with Mattingly retiring because of his back, Tino coming in from Seattle, who had just beaten them, essentially sent Mattingly into retirement.
After 96, he signed this contract.
Correct.
After 96. They just won the championship.
Well, right, but him coming in, there was 1 year left on that deal when they acquired him. But he was a guy that came in in certainly tumultuous waters with the fan base and where the organization was.
Replacing a Yankees legend.
Right.
Like, it's not an easy thing to do.
But yeah, hell of a deal by Cashman on that one.
The first Hideki Matsui contract, 03 to 05, 3 years, $21 million for 11.7 WAR, 1.79 million per WAR. Awesome. Even the second deal for Matsui wasn't terrible either, but really that first 3 years for 21 million on Hideki Matsui and the type of player he was, amazing deal for the Yankees. And so I was like, how much did they post for Hideki Matsui? And I don't think they posted anything because he was not under contract with the Yomiuri Giants. So they did not have to actually pay any additional money to negotiate with him.
Was that not the first year where that posting fee was absolved? Because
no. Afterwards, there was still posting fees. Guys were, I mean, up until Dice K and stuff, there were still those like massive posting fees, and now it's like a set amount. I think if you post them,
right.
But like 2 years earlier,
but there's a lot more control on the player's side now. It's not the team that is running the show as far as where you're going to go and how much money they're going to accept.
I was reading 2 years before Matsui, the Mariners paid as much to negotiate with Ichiro as they signed him.
Yeah, well, look, we're going through some of the biggest and best contracts. We're not touching right now the Keigawas of the world. We're not going through those types of contracts that are not very good. Because when you look through the entire thing, and I know we're going to be getting into Cashman much deeper into the offseason with a few episodes here, but there's some black marks. There's some definite black marks on his record.
DJ LeMahieu's first contract, also amazing, 1.89 million per WAR produced. So again, the 2020 value was lower than it should have been, but DJ had top 5 MVP finishes in his first 2 years with the Yankees. I know his latest deal hasn't been as good, but those first 2 years of DJ, amazing. Roger Clemens.
Injuries. Like, give me a healthy DJ LeMahieu, and I expect similar results. I hope we get a healthy DJ. I know there was a quote in here that who just put it in here? Ilya put in talking about, or Logan just put it in how on DJ's injury. And I hate this. It's just like, I just don't know. It's like the obscurity and the grayness of that is not good. He's the type of guy that if he has this type of injury and they believe it's going to be something lingering for a long time, he's not a like pure, talent guy that has all of these, he's not a 99 player like Judge is. Like, he needs every part of his body to be the guy that he is because of the way that he plays. And if he's injured, we're going to get a 260 hitter that hits 5 to 10 home runs. Not gonna be the same guy.
Yeah. I guess if there's one time to not know about an injury, it's in November and not April or something like that. But yeah, we've seen these sorts of things spiral with the Yankees where there's misdiagnoses, ambiguity about injuries, even in the early off season, and then all of a sudden the guy shows up to spring training. It's like, oh yeah, he's still dealing with something. It's like, oh, what were you doing for the last 3 months?
And with him so far, it's been, a foot bad, not good. Foot injuries are not good, and then like core injuries. Two things that man needs desperately to be the type of player that he is. So it's holding your breath for DJ, because man, is he an effective player when he's healthy.
A couple other really good contracts. Roger Clemens, 2000 to 2003, 4 years, $40 million, 2.37 million per WAR produced. So I found I believe it was a New York Times article about the Clemens contract, basically criticizing the Yankees for this contract at the time, because they were like, how are you going to be paying a pitcher of this age? Because also remember, Clemens in 99, first year with the Yankees, wasn't that great. So how are you going to be paying him $10 million a year? Well, I think Clemens went on, obviously we know what Clemens went on to do, but he went on to be really, really good for the Yankees over the next 4 years. Johnny Damon was also pretty good for the Yankees. 4 years, $52 million, $3.61 million per WAR. He produced 14.4 WAR. The first center fielder that Brian Cashman signed from the Red Sox, really, really good. The second one, Jacoby Ellsbury, not so good, but the first one, Johnny Damon, that worked out for the Yankees.
If you look at if you swap out the Jacoby Ellsbury contract and you put in a Robinson Cano contract, just for conversation's sake, you could even use the Cano contract that he signed with Seattle, and just live in a world where the Yankees went to that, matched it, and signed him. You're getting what? Do we believe that like his career falls off the way it did? Is there still all the smoke that leads to him with the steroids? Like, how does that career path change if he were to stay with the Yankees? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that, but it's interesting to live in an alternate world as if he were the guy coming in, because it was a direct response for losing him.
That McCann and Beltran were direct responses for losing Cano. And McCann's on here too as one of the worst contracts the Yankees ever handed out. 5 years. They paid him. It was originally 5 years, 85. They ended up trading him to Houston. McCann, don't forget, was on the 2017 Astros. Yeah. But the Yankees were paying $5.5 million a year for McCann to play in Houston. So the value on that contract was awful for the Yankees. Obviously, the value on Jacoby Ellsbury was perhaps their worst ever. Beltran's not on this list. Beltran's probably wasn't very good either. So yeah, the direct response to the Yankees losing Robinson Cano were 3 bad contracts.
Yeah. So give me that, and that was a deal that's the guy that felt like that was the first guy that I had the feeling of someone who got away, that came up with the organization, that was around for a long time, that was like supposed to be the next guy. And yeah, like they tried to fill a void, and they tried to do it by piecemealing some things together, and they just ended up being bad contracts and not really good fits at the end of the day. Like,
they would have been better off signing Robinson Cano to 10 years, yes. Even if he fell off like he did in Seattle. I think that would have been a better contract value on that single contract than when you add up all of the 3 bad contracts together. And I think you are right. Robinson Cano did have good years to start in Seattle. They probably would have been slightly better years in New York because it's a better hitter's ballpark. And you could argue that it may have, who knows? Maybe he still gets popped for PEDs and all that crap still happens. Like, let's assume that still happens. I still think the first would have been 2013 or 2014 through 2017, whatever it was. Those years would have been far and away better than Ellsbury, McCann, Beltran.
Yeah, and who knows what the Yankees are doing to add around him as well in those years to give themselves more of a well-rounded championship opportunity. So that one definitely changed things.
One of the first massive contracts, free agent contracts that Cashman did, was Mike Mussina, 6 years, $88.5 million. That one also worked out pretty decently. $5.06 million per WAR spent for Moose, and then he added a couple of years. I think he signed some short-term contracts towards the end after that 6-year deal. But even though Moose wasn't a dominant pitcher, I think his last really, really good year was probably 03, and I think 04, 05, 06 he started to fall off. And I know in 07, I forget if it was 07 or 08, he won 20 games finally.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he was a true pitcher. Those are the guys that you can certainly, I think, get it. As long as your breaking stuff is still, and his knuckle curve was still effective, like you can live in the low 90s and be the type of guy. And that's what he did. He did, not to say he reinvented himself, because I don't think he did that. He just kind of aged with his physical abilities, going down as Father Time starts to take over. He was able to adjust on the fly, I think, with that and do it pretty well.
He won 20 games in 2008, but what's interesting that I didn't realize was in 2007, he started 28 games and had a 5.15 ERA. He was really bad in 2007.
07, he was terrible.
Yeah, wow. But before that, he had some bad years, like you said, in 04 and 05, and then he had a good year in 2006. He was a workhorse too, so always pitched a lot.
It screams injury to
and
me.
then had a really good year. Yeah, definitely. He started 34 games at 39 in 2008. Went 20-9 with a 3.37. Got Cy Young.
Damn, I'm sure he was tempted to come back in 09 too, right? You win 20 games finally. You have he probably wanted to go out on top. And the Yankees,
all you had to do is stay around one more year.
Well, but
that's why they
on top
titled
for
his
him
book almost.
Personally. Right. And then he I'm sure was tempted to come back after that year. But the Yankees missed the playoffs in 08, so he's probably thinking this team's not going to win a World Series next year, so he retired. But
yeah. Whoops.
So, anything stand out to you with these? I mean, the thing that stands out to me is that even the massive contracts haven't been when you think about Garrett Cole so far, Derek Jeter's massive contract. We didn't mention Mark Teixeira. That one wasn't terrible. CC Sabathia overall was pretty good. Tanaka was good. Giambi was good. I mean, it's but then there's these head scratching contracts. Why are you signing Jacoby Ellsbury for so much money?
How many championships? How many championships are in the top? In the top of your spreadsheet. Sorry, in the biggest contracts. I'm looking at the spreadsheet right now. How many championships are in here? There's
just the 09 championship.
Right. So I'm meaning how many players are attached to that championship is what I'm getting at. It's A-Rod,
1, 2,
Jeter,
3, 4.
Yeah.
4.
Yeah. So a lot of this were reactionary contracts and the team just wasn't good. The bottom of Giambi just came in at a different time. Ellsbury, McCann, obviously we already talked about. Tanaka, the team just wasn't good around him, and then Garrett Cole, books sell out, I guess. You go down to the bottom.
When you talk about the best value contracts, there's a shit ton of championships.
Yeah.
Tino, Matsui,
yes,
Roger Clemens, Johnny Damon, Matsui's second contract again. He won the MVP.
There's also a ton that are not on this list because they weren't qualifying. I mean, we had a qualification of 3 years. There's a lot of 1-year deals that were signed for good value. There were a lot of 2-year deals that were signed for good value.
Well, we did include LeMahieu's 2-year deal.
When you go back and look at some of these, even 1-year deals, I know after Pettit came back and signed a 3-year deal with, it was 3 year, $25 million from 2000 to 03. Again, that's good value right there. And then from there, after he came back from the Astros, because he went for 3 years, he signed 5 1-year deals. And I know you were talking about Mariano being a similar, where they're like, okay, let's just re-up. You know what got me thinking about that too? And I was looking back for some of those deals is Hideki Kuroda. When I look back at that deal, because he was the same situation.
He was
1-year
good for
deal.
the Yankees.
I thought he was there for more than 2 years. He was only there for 2 years.
Yeah.
So
Two really solid seasons.
Yeah, I thought it was at least 3 years. I was very my memory was failing me on that one, but I thought it was at least 3 years that he was here. Felt like it was much longer. But Cashman does have a decent track record of going back and looking for some of these value players to put around longer term talent, and that's just what they did that so well in the late 90s and early 2000s because they had the ability to do it with the homegrown talent. And that's what they were trying to do this past 5 years. And unfortunately, it just didn't play out the way that they wanted it to with some of the talent. The guys just didn't work out. And that's why that's so hard to do.
And letting Pettit walk to Houston was a big miss by Cashman. I know there was concerns about his elbow. That's one of the reasons they lowballed him on the contract, but obviously that was a mistake, and they should have re-signed him to the 3-year contract that Houston gave him. I think if you give him that contract, he stays in New York.
For sure. Oh, absolutely he does. Although he did want to go home.
That's what he said after the Yankees lowballed him a contract, okay?
Yeah, he's trying to say, how do I put this nicely to the fan base so that they don't hate me? Oh, I want to be with my family.
You think they win in 04 if they have him?
Yes.
I know they don't blow it in 04 if they have him. Let's
At least
put
make
it
it
that
to the
way.
World Series.
Yeah. They probably mopped the floor with the Cardinals, but
that was his role. He was the stopper.
Let me ask you this, Logan.
That's true. They were lacking.
Who do you
that.
feel better
I
about
wouldn't
starting?
remember.
John Lieber and Kevin Brown or Andy Pettit?
I've practically never heard of that. I couldn't. If I saw that guy in the middle of my college campus, one of those pitchers, I could not pick them out of a hat. Seriously.
Andy
John
Pettit,
Lieber, I understand, but Kevin Brown, you couldn't.
Maybe, probably not.
Yeah. Kevin Brown's got an interesting career history because he signed a massive contract with the Dodgers and that failed, and that's ended up what the Yankees took on. He broke his hand with the Yankees, and the Yankees started him in Game 7, I believe, with like a fractured hand. It was just a freaking disaster.
Well, they had no pitching that year because Andy Pettit wasn't there, the stopper.
And Mike Messina, as we just discussed, had started to fall off.
All right. So who else started?
Well, unfortunately, El Duque got hurt. El Duque was pretty good for them in 04, and he got hurt.
Also,
the others,
a playoff.
Javier Vazquez. So Javier Vazquez in the first half of the season in 04 was a really good pitcher. Then he stunk in the second half and got pulled from the rotation. He didn't even make playoff starts. He did come in to give up the grand slam to Johnny Damon, though. Why are we talking about this?
Yeah, I don't know. That one's
because I don't. You're giving me a history lesson right now.
Nothing makes me spiral quicker than talking about the 2000.
And they lost. ALCS. And they lost Clemens. I forgot that they lost.
Yeah, Clemens and Pettit both went to Houston, and David Wells also left. They lost David Wells, Roger Clemens, Andy Pettit. Even though all of those pitchers were old in 03, they were all still really good in 2000.
Clemens had a good year in 2004. Really good.
Roger Clemens, didn't he win the Cy Young in 2004, 2005?
Maybe. Yeah, 2004.
Yeah.
He had a 187 in 2005.
That might have been a decent help. Might have stopped a collapse potentially.
So this is Cashman's fault, is what you guys are telling me.
Well,
yeah,
Roger Clemens retired.
3-game lead.
Roger Clemens retired after 2003. And
how did they win the first 3 games? Serious question. How did they win the first 3 games?
Okay,
they
we're not
mashed.
Like they were very good.
They mashed. They scored 1 billion runs. Their offense was good. They scored 19 runs in Game 3.
I thought home runs don't win in October.
They didn't.
Yeah. There's your history lesson. It didn't. It didn't work. Small ball ended up working.
As Scott teased, we are working on some Brian Cashman history type episodes that we don't have a date when they'll be published or if there even be one of them or 2 of them. But I am excited to dive into those. Have not done those history type episodes in a while, but Ilya's been a big help there. So those sometime in December, I believe those will be out. Maybe there'll be a holiday special. Let's call it that. Otherwise, we will be back on next week. Maybe Aaron Judge won the MVP. Maybe Aaron Judge signs a contract. Maybe the Yankees do something else. We'll see. Scott,
that's a nice way to bring your new captain back to the team. Is MVP announcement, signing. Let's just get it all out of the way because if you're going to do it, let's just do it. Let's make it all nice. That would be an amazing press conference.
It would. It'd be a nice pre-Thanksgiving present that everyone could enjoy on the long weekend.
That's right. We could all be thankful for Aaron Judge's money.
All right. That's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you have not done so, we would really appreciate a review on whatever platform you listen. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. Thank you. Give it a like. Give it a subscribe. I think that's what YouTubers say. And we'll talk to you next week.